All Indiana Politics is your premier source for Indiana politics, focusing on issues that matter to you.
I still want us to be the best in the Midwest.
We can't afford another lockdown.
Give the citizens of this country the relief they need.
Education in the state of Indiana remains priority number one.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage.
We don't know exactly where the economy will be in January.
People are worried with good reason.
Exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders.
We have the resources here in the state of Indiana to care for those who are in need.
Expert analysis on critical legislation.
We need to reform those laws.
This recovery is going to take some time.
We've got to anticipate that there'll be a budget shortfall.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
I'm Garrett Bergquist, government reporter for Wish TV and the producer of All Indiana Politics. Voters in Indiana's 6th Congressional District will pick a new member of Congress this fall. Congressman Greg Pence is not running for re-election. The 6th District runs from southern Indianapolis to the Ohio state line. 3 people are running to succeed Pence, and you might recognize their names. Republican Jefferson Shreve ran unsuccessfully for mayor of Indianapolis last year. Democrat Cinde Wirth ran against Pence 2 years ago, and Libertarian James Sceniak ran for the Senate in 2022. I sat down with Shreve to discuss his reasons for running. And joining us today is Jefferson Shreve. Jefferson, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Garrett.
Jefferson, why are you running for Congress this fall?
I'm running to represent the 6th District, which is the part of our state that I was born in, raised in, grew a business in, to bring my voice, to bring 30-odd years of experience, both business and local government experience, to the federal level, to be the voice for the citizens of the 6th.
So the economy is playing a pretty big role in this election, especially inflation and the price of housing. What are your plans to address those two issues?
Inflation is a problem, and it arises from the government spending that we have just run wild with over the last many years. Our deficit is up to $35 trillion. And everyone's looking from a global capital market standpoint. We've got to focus on our fiscal security, and you'll see me lean into that heavily with teammates as a working member of the delegation in Congress. Focus on the fiscal, and in turn, this will take some time, in turn, we'll begin to move inflation back into check. Housing is part and parcel with that. You can't have workforce development. You can't keep people in communities or grow communities without housing, but we've got to do those things to keep housing affordable.
As you noted, the national debt is now at $35 trillion and still climbing. How specifically do you plan to bring that down?
You can't lop off great big pieces of our federal government. The fat is marbled in the system, but we've got to take on our constitutional congressional responsibility of putting forward a thoughtful, cogent budget for the United States of America. What we've been doing is working from continuing resolution to continuing resolution. It's going to take work because the fat, as I said, has been marbled in the system, and a lot of it arose from our response to COVID some years ago. But this is a trend line that we just have to turn around if we are going to remain the global leader on the economic stage.
What's your plan for the southern border?
We got to secure it. What does that mean? Well, it's got to be physically completed. We need a physical barrier that will run across the southern border, and we've got to complete that job. And then we need to fix our broken immigration system. We've got to have a cogent pathway to legal, lawful immigration. I'm not in favor of locking everyone out. Our economy is vibrant in part because we have access to labor markets, but there have to be pathways to lawful immigration. And the system that we have today is so broken. People come across the border and they filter into the system, awaiting the process for another year and a half, and at that point, they're lost in the system.
What fixes specifically would you want to make to the legal immigration system?
We have to turn back those that come across our border illegally. We can't let them take asylum for the next year and a half, awaiting a hearing before there's some possible extradition, which rarely happens. We've got to turn them back.
We're recording this interview barely a week after the nation's latest mass shooting, this time at a high school in Georgia. How should Congress address this issue? Other developed countries don't have the same level of mass shootings or firearm homicides generally that we do.
Well, this is something I've thought a lot about. We have guns in the hands of too many young people. 14, 15, 16-year-old kids shouldn't have guns. And we have that problem in parts of our capital city, Indianapolis, and in parts of our state. But I'm not in favor of taking lawful access to firearms away from the citizens of our country.
Let's turn to foreign policy. Should the United States continue military aid to Ukraine?
It's important that Ukraine win this war. We are in this, and it's important that we be helpful. But the United States can't write a blank check to the Ukrainian government, and other nations need to help us.
So what about U.S. aid specifically?
The U.S. is invested in this outcome. It's important that the Ukraine turn back the Russians. And so I'm in favor of supporting them toward this conclusion.
What about aid to Israel?
It's just important that we continue to support our biggest ally in the region. We remember vividly the events of October 7th. We need to be helpful with the return of the hostages that remain over there. We want the Israelis and the Hamas to settle this, but the Israelis are our ally, and I'll continue to favor support for them.
You served on the Indianapolis City County Council for a few years. You ran as mayor. You ran for mayor last year. How would you use that experience in Washington, working on federal policy?
Well, it gave me experience in working across the aisle. I served with a Democrat and a Republican administration while in council, and I served with a Democrat majority in both instances. And the ability to pull hearts and minds across the aisle to move legislation down the field is experience that I'll bring with me in what is very likely to be a closely divided government in the 119th Congress.
We talked a lot about national level policy issues so far. What are some things that are specific to this congressional district that you would like to address in Congress?
Energy issues loom large as I move around the 11 counties that make up the district, and transportation. This district literally is at the crossroads of America. It's important that the representative for the 6th district be focused on the hard infrastructure that makes up the district, that in part empowers our distribution-based economy. Continued access to affordable energy is important for this district and for this state. We are a manufacturing powerhouse, but that consumes a lot of kilowatts. And our energy costs have increased to a level that are increasingly going to make Indiana not competitive with those other states that we're going to jostle with for leadership. So energy and transportation will be my focus.
What are some things specifically you want to do in those two areas?
Well, we obviously need to continue to invest in clean energy and to do that investment at the national level. But while doing that and being mindful that alternatives account for less than 10% of our supply, we've got to be able to leverage the natural resources that we enjoy in Indiana toward power generation. And so I will be in favor of those efforts to ensure that we have sovereignty from the standpoint of our domestic energy production while keeping the cost of energy in Indiana affordable and competitive as we work to draw in more investors into our state.
What's your plan for dealing with the drug abuse crisis, especially fentanyl?
Well, that's a function of the border security that we talked about a few minutes ago. It just is flowing across the southern border. Most of that production is not from Latin America, but it's coming from countries in Asia, China specifically. But our border is so porous as to traffic that fentanyl right up I-69 into Indiana and to so many other states. Again, we've got to secure our southern border, and part and parcel with that, develop a cogent immigration policy, and with that, turn back those illegals that are pouring across the border that shouldn't be here.
What should we do about the people who are already here unlawfully?
We've got to turn some of those folks back that just have no standing in this country. We cannot afford to pull them into our education and healthcare systems if they haven't worked through the process in the lawful fashion that our Constitution and our laws have defined. It's not fair to all of those that have lawfully worked hard for citizenship or for legal immigration to work in this country.
What about recipients of deferred action for childhood arrivals? A lot of those DACA recipients are entering adulthood and entering the workforce now.
Yeah, well, there are shades of gray, Garrett, on this. This is not a hard and fast, clean cut, turn everyone back proposition. I recognize that. And we still want people to have access to the American dream, but we want them to have that lawfully and predictably.
What makes you the best choice in this race?
I've got the experience from taking a very small business, growing it into a medium-sized business, trading it into a great big publicly traded company, large market cap, and I've woven that in with government experience, both at the municipal level and in some of the agencies that are so important to central Indiana, involvement with leadership at the state chamber level. I think I've got the combination of experiences that best prepares me to serve the people of the 6 today.
Jefferson Shreve, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Garrett.
That was Jefferson Shreve, Republican candidate for the 6th Congressional District. Remember, you can catch All Indiana Politics every Sunday morning at 9:30, only on Wish TV. I'm Garrett Bergquist. Thanks for listening.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.